Oh, and a little bit of coffee too. All right, it's 11:08 in the evening, the 3rd of May, 2021. I'm David Reimer. I have been rejuvenated with coffee, and oh, we got problems. Just had a wind gust of 87 miles per hour measured at the airport in Sulphur Springs. That's 87 miles per hour. That is the equivalent of a Category 1 hurricane on the high end. So it goes without saying, extremely dangerous thunderstorms now moving into northeast Texas, winds up to 85 miles per hour in spots with these thunderstorms. This whole line from Mineola to Yantis, Sulphur Springs to Tier, the potential for extremely strong hurricane force winds, the potential for tree damage, power line damage, trees falling on structures. So what I'm doing now is just making sure we've got the live stream up on everything it needs to be. I have to go press some buttons on YouTube because they make my life difficult at times. Not as much as Facebook does, but they try. So just got to get everything set up. My apologies. All right, we're going to press that. 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 I'm going to keep talking like I have no idea what I'm doing because that's what I do, even though I do know what I'm doing. Okay, so let's review what we've got going on right now. We've got a line of intense thunderstorms capable of producing hurricane force winds from near Sulphur Springs to Yantis to Quitman to Mineola. The strongest part of these storms looks to be around Sulphur Springs, where the automated weather station just reported a 87, that's 87 miles per hour wind gust, well up into hurricane force. That's capable of causing severe tree damage, capable of causing some structure damage, capable of causing widespread tree damage. In fact, power outages, trees fall on roads. It's night, roads get blocked, people drive into roads in the dark, driving on roads at night in the dark, hit a tree, get hurt. Bad things. Trees fall on structures, etc. Potential for 80 to 90 mile per hour straight line winds with some of these thunderstorms that'll be moving to Bogota, Talco, Mount Pleasant, Pittsburgh, Gilmer, Hawkins, Winsboro, Como, Quitman. Again, 87 mile per hour wind gusts measured in Sulphur Springs about 5 minutes ago. So we are live. Got to make sure we get everything set because Twitter removed their live streaming client. I have to make sure people know we're live. So I'd say the storms are definitely picking up in intensity. We're not talking about supercellular storms with tornadoes and baseball-sized hail. We're talking about a squall line with 80 to 90 mile an hour straight line winds producing the damage equivalent to that of a tornado over a larger area. It is not ideal. And by not ideal, I mean it's not good at all. So let me go ahead and make sure we get this onto Twitter. And by the way, you can track the storms with our interactive weather radar on our website and in our mobile app at texasstormchasers.com/radar, or just click on or go to your app store or whatever, and you can download our app. So again, that is a 87 mile per hour wind gust measured at 11:04 this evening in Sulphur Springs, Texas. Those same storms are moving towards Bogota, Talco, Mount Pleasant, Pittsburgh, Gilmer, Hawkins. Why is this not letting me share? Okay, there we go. Okay, so that is where those storms are going. Talco, this storm is 20 minutes away. Mount Pleasant, 35 minutes away. You know what? Let's use relative times on this. Winsboro, 11:28. Mount Vernon, 11:31. Talco, 11:36. Winfield, 11:39. Mount Pleasant, 11:49. Pittsburgh, 11:52. Anona, 11:55. Again, some of these storms are producing extremely strong hurricane force winds up to 90 miles per hour, 75 knots for those who may be into aviation. Okay, let's dive south. We've got a more cellular type thunderstorm located over Maybank, capable of producing maybe ping pong ball size hail, winds up to 65 miles per hour. This storm is moving to the northeast at about, well, let's say 45 miles an hour, so it's a booking. It could impact Canton in the next 20 minutes. Van over the next 30 minutes again. quarter to ping pong ball size hail, winds up to 60. Oh, look, we have more storms firing farther west in southern North Texas because, yay, we've got a broken line of storms producing nickel size hail from near Milford and Mertens down to Bynum, Abbott, Valley Mills. The one north of Valley Mills is probably severe with quarter size hail. We have a severe storm south of Golinda near Lott, moving towards Marlin. That storm's moving northeast at 30. We'll be in Marlin the next 20 minutes. And for fun, we also have a severe storm back in the cool side of the cold front up in northwest Texas, producing winds of 60 to 65 miles per hour. Northwest of Vernon just had a wind gust up to 62 miles an hour. We have winds 60 to 65 miles an hour. And these storms are moving east-northeast towards Electra, Davidson, Oklahoma, Frederick, Oklahoma. Should stay south of our favorite towns, Tipton and Manitou, Oklahoma, where we've witnessed more tornadoes than we care to count right now because it's after 11 at night. So let's get back to the most serious severe storms. That's going to be a section of squall line capable of producing 60 to 80 mile per hour winds. That's messy. Let's see if we can get a better look. Now, the problem is we're looking over 10,000 feet in northeast Texas with the radar. That's the mid-levels of the storm. We're not getting a good look at the low levels of the storm. So it's extremely difficult to detect rotation, any of that. Radar is detecting winds over 100 miles an hour. Again, we're looking like 10,000 feet. That's not going to be representative of what we're seeing at the surface. A little appendage there south of Como, northeast of Yantis, could have wind gusts over 80 miles an hour in that little Boeing segment. These storms are moving east-northeast at about 50 miles an hour. The potential for winds 60 to 80 miles per hour. Quarter-size hail, and we can't rule out a brief tornado. Not entirely sure. That's not what hit the Sulphur Springs observation site, frankly. But I expect if that was more widespread than a block, I would expect we're going to hear wind damage pretty quick here in Sulphur Springs if they had 90-mile-an-hour winds across town. These storms will be in Bogota here within 20 minutes, Mount Pleasant within 30 minutes. Severe storm farther southwest from Gun Barrel City to east of Kemp. And there's our latest update now east of Kemp, over Maybank, moving out of Maybank, out of Eustis, out of Gun Barrel City. Moving up towards Canton and Van, the potential for some quarter to half-dollar size hail. All right, looks like we got a new severe thunderstorm warning. Going to be up in northwest Texas for portions of Wilbarger and Wichita counties. So let's go say hello to those storms. These are going to be a wind threat. Potential for winds up to 60 miles per hour. On the current track, storms are near Vernon now, being Electra by 11:35, Grandfield, Oklahoma by 12:03, moving into Burke Burnett, Texas around 12:08 a.m. on the Texas-Oklahoma border and Interstate 44. Back in central and northeast Texas, the DFW Metroplex, storms that were west that produced the baseball-sized hail and 85-mile-an-hour winds near Stanford, yeah, they've dissipated. So for now, the DFW Metroplex, I can't rule out an isolated storm overnight, but frankly, you're clear for now. All the storms are to your east and to your south. We've got some strong storms from near Italy to Abbott to Valley Mills, small hail, maybe some larger hail northeast of Valley Mills. Have a storm capable of producing quarter-size hail just northwest a lot, crossing 77, moving up towards Marlin on Highway 7. Storm north of Coolridge, small hail moving towards Richland. Storm northeast of Maybank by like a mile, moving northeast towards Canton Van. Could have half-dollar size hail. Winds of 60 to 65 miles per hour. We'll switch over to the Shreveport radar. Well, here, let me look real quick. I need to see which radar is closer. We're in a radar hole. The closest radar is over 100 miles away. It's going to be Shreveport, but we're still looking at about 12,000 feet above the surface, which is about as ideal as going to the dentist and getting a root canal. Frankly, looking at the winds, it's kind of useless. We're looking 12,000 feet above the surface in the mid-levels of the storm. I can't tell you what's going on at the surface, except for surface observations. We had an 87-mile-an-hour wind gust in Sulphur Springs. That was extremely limited, most likely. Most folks will see winds like 50 to 60. So, leading edge of the thunderstorms extends from near Cunningham to Sulphur Bluff to Como to just west of Winsboro to near Quitman. Strongest storms are going to be from near Yantis and Como up to Sulphur Bluff and Cunningham. And these are moving east, northeast at about 45 miles per hour, closer to 50 perhaps. Again, I wish I could show you velocity and give you a clear idea of what's going on. We've got a pocket of pretty strong wind near Como, but we're looking 12,000 feet above the radar. Northeast Texas is in what we call a radar hole. The closest radar is 100 miles away. Closest radar is going to either be Shreveport, Louisiana, or Burleson, Texas. Not ideal, not great. That's why in Northeast Texas, it's so critical we have ground truth or ground reports from spotters. You can't send spotters out in this stuff in the middle of the night. One, it's dangerous. Two, there's trees everywhere. Three, this is a squall line. If there was to be a tornado for some reason, it'd be completely wrapped in rain and frankly unidentifiable on radar unless somehow debris got lofted 12,000 feet into the air. And if we had debris lofted 12,000 feet into the air, that's not a weak tornado. So it's just not ideal. So that's what surface observations are useful for, and frankly, a bit of intellectual guesswork. And these storms are capable of producing winds up to 70, 75 miles an hour in localized areas. I expect these storms are quite capable of knocking down a lot of trees, which will then fall onto structures, power lines, and roads. Not great. That's an issue most of the remainder of Texas doesn't have to deal with. If you're in the western two-thirds of Texas, in all likelihood, you don't have enough trees to cause widespread disruptions. I mean, yeah, you'll have some trees come down, but not like East Texas where it's a forest. A beautiful forest, but a forest. It's a whole different world chasing storms in East Texas, Southeast Texas, Northeast Texas. It's more like being in Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, or Alabama than it is being west of Interstate 35, where you have far less trees, far less hills. Not as pretty. It's far prettier in spots, that's for sure, especially if you like trees, but Texas is a large state with many different ecosystems. So, strong storms, severe storms capable of producing winds over 75 miles an hour in spots from near Winsboro to Mount Vernon to Bogota to Talco. And they're moving northeast at about 50 miles an hour. Now we'll switch back to the Fort Worth radar to take a look at the storm coming up on Canton. This is going to be a severe storm capable of producing quarter to $half size hail. Moving northeast at about 40 miles per hour. It'll be crossing just near or south of Canton in about 10 minutes, so 11:31. Van in about 20 to 25 minutes. Let's just say 11:40 to 11:45. Mineola in about 45 minutes, which would place it a bit after midnight, and would pass near Lindale at about the same time. We've got more storms trying to go up further southwest. A sub-severe storm that is east of Hubbard, north of Coolidge, east of Dawson, moving towards Interstate 45 and Corsicana. Would cross over Highway Interstate 45 at about 25 minutes, so 11:45. Highway 31 around Powell and Currens at about 45 minutes, which would place it around or just after midnight. We've got some sub-severe storms, small hail, gusty winds, heavy rain, lightning. From north of Valley Mills to Aquila to Abbott to Bynum to Mertens to south of Italy, west of Blooming Grove, moving northeast, and a severe storm capable of producing quarter-size hail over Lot, moving towards Marlin. It'll be there in about 20 minutes or less. So that's what we have going on right now. Oh, yeah, I forgot. My apologies. Let's go look at this one. We've got a severe storm capable of producing winds over 60 miles an hour from near Vernon to coming up on 287 near Electra. This isn't a hailer, this is a wind maker. This will be crossing over the Red River to Frederick, Hollister, Davidson, and then eventually the eastern edge of this may impact Granfield. I think the highest winds are going to stay west of Burke Burnett. and west of Iowa Park, unless this moves more southeast. Let's play a loop. See, this thing's moving northeast right now, so it should be crossing over the Red River into Oklahoma here, west of Wichita Falls, well west of Wichita Falls, well west of Burke Burnett in all likelihood, with the strongest winds and small Boeing line segments. So could have some strong winds now up to 65 miles an hour near 287 and 183. East of Vernon had winds up to 62. West of Vernon by a mile. And these storms are all moving northeast towards the Red River into Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plains. Sorry, I started singing. Been a long evening. In terms of rain, hey, you know what? Look at that. Let's switch the Amarillo radar. In fact, you know what? Let me do this. We'll turn that off. We'll turn on the regional grid. We've got some moderate rain, sub-severe storms, nothing to worry about in the severe department. Some good rains falling across the southern Texas panhandle. Hey, we need it. Got some rain in the northeastern panhandle, too. Otherwise, we've got our scattered storms in northeast Texas moving into eastern North Texas, central Texas. No tornadoes, no major flooding. We'll go ahead and load a loop for the last few hours, say 4 hours, zoom out to Texas, cut out some of the cities. We'll zoom on in. You can see what's been going on the last several hours. It's been a busy day in the weather department. Something that makes me happy, though, is all that rain we had falling across the panhandle in West Texas. You know, it may not be too much, but they needed it. It's better than just deteriorating into further exceptional drought. Well, that's what we're dealing with right now. We're going to be watching these storms moving into northeast Texas. Localized damaging straight line winds over 75 miles an hour are possible. Potential for some quarter to $half size hail. The storms we were watching in the big country moving towards DFW fizzled out. Funny enough, the high resolution rapid refresh model thought it'd make it all the way to Texarkana. Yeah, that didn't happen. Storms that were farther south around Austin to Georgetown, the cap has squashed them. Around Burnett, those are gone. The cap has squashed them. Storms that were around Gatesville have weakened. Same thing with around Temple. It's technically still severe, but, you know, it's not as intense as it was earlier. And then we're watching storms in northeast Texas. So that is what we have going on right now. I'm concerned about the potential for damaging straight line winds in northeast Texas that could knock down trees. Trees fall on structures, power lines, roadways. People driving at night may not see a downed tree on a highway. They hit it at highway speed. Really bad things happen. We note the Shreveport radar is still looking way above the surface, like 12,000 feet, is showing winds over 60 to 70 miles an hour approaching Mount Vernon. Based on the 87 mile an hour wind gust measured in Sulphur Springs, I'd say we definitely could see some 60 to 75 mile an hour winds in Mount Pleasant in the next 20 minutes or so. And we're going to have to keep an eye on storms farther to southwest too for some quarter-size hail and some strong damaging winds. And we'll do that with you all this evening. So what I'm doing, I'm just analyzing some data, keeping updated on situational awareness. Since we don't have a radar in northeast Texas and we're looking so high up above the surface, it's somewhat less intense than if you had a tornado down. And we don't have any tornadoes down, mind you, so we're able to take a bit more of a relaxed stance. But I want folks in Talco, Mount Pleasant, Pittsburgh to realize they could have hurricane force winds in spots coming in from the west over the next 20 minutes. You don't want to be near windows, and you don't want to be in a spot where a tree could fall on you. So that is definitely a concern. It's the middle of the night, so we're not going to hear a lot of severe weather reports until morning. Radar out of Shreveport showing a pretty good rear inflow jet coming into the back of these storms around north of Winnsboro. We're looking in the mid-levels of the storm, mind you, so we can't really tell what's going on at the surface, but that's a good indication we've got some damaging straight-line winds being pushed out towards Mount Pleasant, towards Talco, towards Pittsburgh, hitting Mount Vernon right now. So I guess we might know something here in a few minutes. I think we've got an automated weather observation station in Mount Vernon. If we do, I might actually call into it. No, I don't know if we do. I don't see one on my map. So maybe we don't. Automated weather observation systems were installed at many decent-sized airports and provide automated weather observations of wind, temperature, dew point, rainfall, etc. West of 35, the West Texas Mesonet's actually installed a very strong network, well over 100 stations of small weather stations across the Big Country, West Texas, the Panhandle, down into the Permian Basin, and those are very useful. The Oklahoma Mesonet's installed well over 100 weather stations across the state of Oklahoma. I believe they have one in every county. Some counties have multiple, and those are helpful for determining small-scale weather features. And obviously, if you have a storm hit one, it measures the rainfall, the wind, etc. So we've got strong winds showing up around Winnsboro up to Mount Vernon, approaching Talco. Unfortunately, we're looking at about 12,000 feet above the surface, so those may not be representative of what's going on exactly at ground level, but it's a good bet we've got winds of 55, 65, maybe even 75 miles an hour in spots. And those would knock down trees, which could block roadways, knock out power, and we could even have some trees fall on structures, which is dangerous. Storm capable of producing nickel to quarter size hail now coming up on Canton from the south. It'll pass just south of town, it looks like, at least most of the hail. Crossing Highway 64, just northwest of Edom, approaching Van on Interstate 20 in about 15 to 20 minutes. After that, it'll be in Lindale in about 35 minutes or less. Mineola, same thing. Hawkins on Highway 80, about 55 minutes, so about 12:25 in the morning. So the good news is, at least for DFW, notice we don't have any storms west of the Metroplex now. That might mean we can be done for the night in DFW and in places like Gainesville and Sherman. These storms we have in northwest Texas around Vernon to west of Electra are moving northeast towards southwest Oklahoma with 60 to 65 mile an hour winds, small hail, gusty winds, obviously. I just said there was gusty winds and heavy rain. At this point, unless they started building more east, those storms would stay well west of Wichita Falls. We have scattered rain falling across the panhandle of Texas. Nothing severe with that, just a good soaking rain. We note there's some pop-up storms up in central Oklahoma, southern Oklahoma. Those seem to be where we have some stronger lift in place. Some of these actually kind of look supercellular, which is interesting. Definitely could be some hail out of those, but otherwise, looks like it actually has some ping pong ball size hail a bit east of Stillwater, Oklahoma. That's where Oklahoma State University is for any of y'all who might have kids up there. That's east of town. And then we've got a squall line moving across northwestern Arkansas that produced tornadoes around Fort Smith, Arkansas earlier. And all these storms, flooding, potential for damaging straight line winds, a lot of straight line winds, I should say. And all this is up in West Arkansas. I'm looking, we don't have any tornado warnings in Texas, which is why, and the time of night is also why I'm spending a little more time looking around, because I'm a weather weenie, that's what I do. So back in the northeast Texas, damaging straight line winds moving into places like Bogota, Talco, Mount Vernon, Winnsboro, moving towards Mount Pleasant, Pittsburgh, and eventually it'll continue moving northeast at 45 miles per hour. So I expect we're going to have another severe thunderstorm warning issued for areas east of the current orange box in the coming minutes. The potential for winds up to 70 miles per hour. And again, the closest radar is in Shreveport. We're not getting a good look at the low levels of the storms, but there's definitely good mid-level signatures suggesting strong winds. I mean, a little bit of rotation around Bogota. On the north side of these squall lines, it's not uncommon for some circulations to spin up brief tornadoes, but again, nothing that screams tornado right now, and frankly, I wouldn't be able to tell you if there was in all likelihood. Storms farther southwest moving towards Canton, Lindale, Mineola don't have as strong of a wind signature. They've got more of a quarter-size hail signature. And then we've got the potential for some heavier rain, smaller hail around Corsicana to Hillsborough. Those storms aren't severe. The storm around Marlin is not severe anymore. Could still have some small hail with it. As is typical for severe weather threats, we have transitioned from a supercellular storm mode late this afternoon, early this evening with big hail, tornadoes, to a linear mode where we're mostly in a cluster or squall line. We still have a few individual storms out there, but the threats clearly transitioned to a damaging straight line wind, spotty pocket change size hail. And we can't rule out a brief tornado, but in all likelihood, it would be within a broader area of significant straight line winds. We notice a pretty good wind signature southeast of Vernon, south of Winfield, moving towards Mount Pleasant and Pittsburgh. Can't rule out a brief tornado there within broader straight line winds. Oh, looks like we just got a new discussion from the Storm Prediction Center. Let me pop over and see what they're saying. Oh. Further south into central and northeast Texas, a broken line of storms should continue to pose an isolated large hail and damaging wind threat in the short term, given strong deep layer shear and moderate instability. The greatest severe wind threat across this region should focus across parts of northeast Texas, where a small cluster of storms is moving east-northeastward. Although there is some low-level variant strengthening of the wind profile that will conditionally support a tornado, the unfavorable storm mode should keep the tornado threat isolated. And that's what we were saying. These linear storms tend to not favor much of a tornado threat or a long-lived tornado threat, but can produce brief spin-up tornadoes. But with the radar in Shreveport so far away and no radar in northeast Texas, we're not looking at the low levels of the storm. So we know there's strong straight line winds. The mid-level signatures of the storm support that. We had an 87-mile-an-hour wind gust back in Sulphur Springs. And let me be clear, I think most of the winds were well below that in this area. I think the random, isolated, nasty microburst just managed to hit the weather station around Sulphur Springs. We've got strong winds moving into Talco and to Mount Pleasant, and that's to be expected with these cluster of thunderstorm type situations. Moving back into eastern North Texas, we've got a storm with quarter-size hail passing south of Canton. That's a pretty good looking reflectivity signature. I definitely say some quarter-size hail. That'll be moving across Highway 64 towards Van in the next 10 to 15 minutes. We've got other sub-severe storms in southeastern Ellis County, much of Navarro County, back west into Hill County. We'll look at the hail product estimator off the radar. And this usually estimates hail a bit too large because it's looking above or in the middle levels versus what you might get at the surface after some melting. Some quarter-size hail being indicated northwest of Blooming Grove, so maybe dime to nickels. Small hail across several locations of Navarro County with multiple storms. Small hail west of Abbott with a strong thunderstorm. And then we've got the radar trying to pick up on some nickel, maybe a quarter-size hailstone south of Marlin, and that's with the storm that is moving east towards Coss on Highway 7 will pass west of Marquez towards Hewitt. on 79 if it survives in about an hour, 20 minutes, and it may not survive. So we are into a damaging straight line wind mode with a cluster of severe thunderstorms moving northeast into northeast Texas. The damaging wind threat will likely continue until these storms exit the exit northeast Texas, and the Arklatex move into Arkansas in about, well, if they're still moving at 50 miles an hour, let's just go ahead and put a tracker on it and see when they might be out of the states. Here, I'll just put a leading edge. It's about 60 miles to Texarkana, so we've still got over an hour of damaging wind issues to deal with in northeast Texas before these storms are out of the state. As you can see, we've got strong winds being indicated in the mid-levels of the storms. Winds of 60 miles an hour, maybe 70 in spots are possible. We had an 87-mile-an-hour wind gust back in Sulphur Springs earlier. And based on the time of night, not many folks are awake. You're not going to get many severe weather reports, and there's not much to see anyway. It's a squall line. It's literally a wall of rain and wind. With all the trees, the darkness, you just can't see anything. So it'd be more dangerous sending spotters out in this situation than it is just let them sit at home. And you know what? If they end up, unfortunately, getting hit with a microburst at home, at least they can report that. Unfortunately, these strong winds are capable of knocking trees down onto houses, knocking trees down onto roadways, power lines. So I'm expecting there to be a substantial number of power outages across northeast Texas as these storms move through. Several roadways are going to be blocked by downed trees. And of course, we could have trees fall onto homes, which is not anything you want to deal with. But the good news is, I don't think these are really putting out much hail. Maybe some pea to dime size hail. These are not producing baseballs or golf balls or anything that would break a window in all likelihood. So that's good news. The bad news is I left my coffee in the other room. And that is tragic. But I'll survive. So let's go ahead and put a storm track on these. And assume it's still moving at 50. And I'll tell you, Mount Pleasant, you've probably got some real nasty winds about to come into town. Notice how we're getting a bow shape here, and the apex of the bow is coming into Mount Pleasant. That could support winds well over 70 miles an hour in spots. So Mount Pleasant, I would not want to be facing or looking out your west windows right now. And it wouldn't be a bad idea for you to kind of treat this like a tornado warning, given the very strong winds expected to come in. Knock down a lot of trees, power lines. Trees can fall onto houses. But assuming this is moving northeast, let's put a storm track on it. Let's just do this a little ahead of the storm just in case. And I'm going to do 55 miles an hour just to be safe. Give us a little extra lead time. Mount Pleasant, this is coming into town literally right now. Pittsburgh, 11:43. Omaha, 11:56. DeKalb, 11:58. Naples, 11:59. Ore City, 12:01. Marietta, 12:08. New Boston, 12:11. Douglasville, 12:20. Linden, 12:21. Leary, 12:24. Nash, 12:29. Atlanta, 12:33. Queen City, 12:33. Texarkana, 12:34. So that is the estimated arrival time of these storms. As always, it's a good idea to give yourself a little leeway in this. Assume they're going to get there a bit earlier. And if they end up being a few minutes late, well, better to be early. Or in this case, it's better to be a bit late than early. We're hearing of some wind damage in northeast Texas. We're hearing that around Winsboro, apparently the cell network's out. So, yeah, we've got wind causing problems. And again, it's the middle of the night. We're not going to know exactly what kind of wind damage we have until sunrise. But these storms are capable of producing big time wind that can knock down a lot of trees, knock out power, and some trees could fall on homes. So please take these storms seriously. They're not producing tornadoes, but some of the wind gusts are easily capable of producing tornado like damage. And because the closest weather radar is so far away, we're not going to be able to tell you exactly what this thing's doing in the low levels because the closest radar has us looking at about 10,000 feet above the surface. I mean, we can look at the radar and look, it looks pretty messy. Mid levels, yeah, we've got strong winds coming into Mount Pleasant, but we're relying more off the ground truth at this point and the ingredients that support this thing producing damaging straight line winds. The last weather station this thing hit, it produced an 87-mile-an-hour wind gust. I don't think winds are going to be that strong in most of these areas, but at the same time, winds of 60 to 70 miles an hour are certainly possible, and those will knock down a lot of trees, cause damage to the power infrastructure. Trees fall on houses and businesses, block roadways, etc. So, those of you wondering, by the way, you can keep an eye on all the storms with our interactive weather radar on our website at texasstormchasers.com/radar. So I'm just going to keep that storm track. Actually, you know what? We'll get rid of the storm track. Let's go ahead and take a look at the storms in Navarro and southern Ellis. Little small hail possible north of Blooming Grove. Otherwise, these are mainly small hail, gusty winds, heavy rain producers. Maybe some 50-mile-an-hour winds around Blooming Grove in northwestern Navarro County, moving towards Rice and Corsicana. All right, looks like we've got our new big severe thunderstorm warning. That encompasses much of northeast Texas. Let's go ahead and pop back over to that. I'm about to read off a lot of counties here. We'll press that. So, Weather Service has about the same timing. So, DeKalb, 12:07, Omaha, 12:59, Marietta, 12:12, New Boston, 12:21, Douglasville, 12:25, Queen City, 12:38. And I'll just read the weather warning. Northern Marion County, Cass County, Bowie County, Upshur County, Morris County, Titus County, Camp County, Red River County. At 11:43 p.m., a line of severe storms was located from near Clarksville to Mount Pleasant to near Leesburg, moving east at 55 miles per hour. So that forward rate of motion has increased to 55 now. So that only heightens the fact, hey, these storms are producing strong winds. It doesn't take much wind produced out of a storm to make it damaging when the storm's moving at 55 miles an hour. Trees have been reported down across Franklin County. Locations in this warning include Texarkana, Mount Pleasant, Atlanta, Wake Village, Ashdown, New Boston, Pittsburgh, Clarksville, Leesburg, Nash, Hooks, Jefferson, Linden, Hughes Springs, DeKalb, Lone Star, Queen City, and Naples. And again, these storms are capable of producing straight-line winds of 60 to 70 miles per hour, small hail, heavy rain. Those strong winds could knock down a lot of trees in a large area of real estate. That could block roadways, knock out power, and some trees may even fall on homes. Note we just had nickel-size hail reported. That's not nickel, that's dime size. Whatever, 3/4 of an inch size hail. On the north side of Corsicana, we notice even stronger reflectivity values north of Blooming Grove, so it's entirely possible we have some nickel-size hail with this storm, and they're moving northeast at about 30 miles per hour. Storm east of Marlin is weakening, should continue doing so. We've got isolated to scattered showers and storms across southern North Texas. We'll go ahead and zoom back out into northeast Texas. Switch back to our closest weather radar. Take some acetaminophen because my throat is not a happy camper. Pills? Acetaminophen. So our main issue right now is damaging straight line winds with the storms moving across northeast Texas from near Avery to Mount Pleasant to Pittsburgh. Strongest storms appear to be from just west of Pittsburgh to Mount Pleasant to Avery. With strong straight line winds being indicated. And some of these storms are showing rotation. It's not uncommon for brief tornadoes to spin up in these damaging straight line wind situations in small sections of the squall line. For example, radar is showing some mid-level rotation southeast of Talco, north of Mount Pleasant. That is an area where we could have damaging straight line winds up to 70 miles an hour, maybe even a quick tornado. Unfortunately, we don't have any low-level radar coverage, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. And if for some reason we had a tornado debris signature go up to 10,000 feet, those are not produced by weak tornadoes, so we'd have a major problem. And I don't expect that kind of a tornado this evening. Nevertheless, if we have one quick tornado that's an EF0, EF1 that comes down your street, that's going to be a pretty bad situation for you. So that's why we say pay attention to all the weather warnings. I'll go ahead and loop this. You can see this complex of storms in northeast Texas is moving pretty quick now, 55 miles an hour, so it won't stick around in one spot too long. And we should have it out of the state in about, well, within an hour at this point. It'll be in Texarkana in about 60 minutes, 55, 60 minutes. So the storms are going to continue moving northeast quickly, 55 miles an hour, the potential for damaging straight line winds up to 70 miles per hour. We could have some small hail, maybe pea to dime size hail. These aren't hailers. And we cannot rule out a brief tornado or two. Again, the brief tornado or two would be likely so small, so fast, we wouldn't be able to see it using the weather radar because the radar is looking from Shreveport, and that's the closest radar. So regardless, the potential for damaging straight line winds is high enough. I'm concerned about a lot of trees getting knocked down, falling on roads, power lines, stationary objects like houses, buildings, vehicles. Hopefully a stationary vehicle. If you had a tree fall in a car that was moving, that would not be ideal. And we don't want folks driving in this kind of weather or right afterwards because dark roads at night, if you have a tree that's fallen, you're going at highway speed, you might not see it before you hit it. And unfortunately, that's been an issue where people have been killed over the years. Driving after thunderstorms, knock a bunch of trees down. They don't realize a tree's down. They drive right into it. At highway speed, it kills you. Or at least seriously injures you. So, let me press this. So, now lean edge of the storms from near Avery to Wilkinson to Argo to Mount Pleasant, coming up on Pittsburgh. A little bit of hail west of Pittsburgh. Again, south of that, the storms become much less intense and more scattered. Storms in southeastern Ellis, northern Navarro counties are probably borderline severe. It could go either way. Maybe some nickel to quarter size hail in spots, winds of 50, 55 miles an hour, but they're not your classic I'm going to knock your house down with hail wind tornado situations. Somebody took some drugs with that. Oh, look, drugs. Can we not do that, please? Please and thank you. And so that's what we've got going on this evening. I'm afraid there's not a lot to talk about in terms of showing you pretty pictures or impressive velocity signatures or radar signatures, but we're still here because we want to keep folks up to date. Someone who might join us randomly, they hear a storm coming and pop us on. You know what, it's better to get the warning out to anybody we can, even if it is approaching midnight. And that's why we're here. So the leading edge of the storm's quickly moving northeast now. We'll put a new storm track on it when the next radar scan comes in. They're moving at 55 miles an hour, so they're going to be in places like Naples, Douglasville, Linden, Atlanta, Lone Star, New Boston, even Texarkana over the next 20 to 55 minutes. and they'll probably continue producing damaging winds in northwestern Louisiana and Arkansas. Arkansas is not having a great night. They've got all sorts of mayhem going on right now, north and west of Interstate 30 and Interstate 44. They had tornadoes in Fort Smith earlier. We've got a little line segment producing damaging winds now north of 287, northwest of Iowa Park. And those will be making their way into southwest Oklahoma here soon, staying west of Wichita Falls. We've got scattered storms popping up in central and southern Oklahoma. Noted, since I'll probably end up getting a random lightning strike nearby that'll make me scared / jump. A plethora of flood warnings coming out for rivers in East Texas. Filling my Twitter feed. I love it when there's like 15 flood warnings that get issued at once and just go... Bah, 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 bah. Yes, they make that exact sound. No. You cannot use that sound. And yes, it's late and I need more coffee, but we haven't had any recent reports. The last wind gust we had, or Mount Vernon, we've got trees all over Franklin County. We've got trees down all over Mount Vernon, which is where the storm in Mount Pleasant was. This same storm that hit Mount Vernon knocked down a bunch of trees, produced an 87-mile-an-hour wind gust in Sulphur Springs. So it's reasonable to expect a lot of tree damage around Mount Pleasant and places like Avery, Clarksville, up into New Boston, Douglasville, Atlanta, Queen City, up into Texarkana over the next 30 minutes. I mean, these are producing a lot of wind that are knocking trees down. Trees fall on roadways, trees fall on houses, trees fall on power lines. They fall down, and then it's not ideal. So, all right, what's the latest scam we've got? 11:52, more flood warnings. Hooray! So, what's that? 11:52. You know what? Let's do a new storm track. At least I can tell y'all when it's going to begin to your little specific part of the world. We're going to give ourselves... No, I made a boo-boo. Let's do this. And I'm going to do it for the most intense sections, and I'm deliberately giving myself some leeway with the timing. I might be about 5 minutes early with this, but I'd rather be early than late with the timing. So let's do it this way. DeKalb, well, that might be a little too... that's probably about right. Gusty winds, the potential for some very strong winds, in fact, in DeKalb, 11:57, Omaha, 11:59, Naples, 12:03, Lone Star, 12:05, Hughes Springs, 12:08, New Boston, 12:10. Marietta, 12:12, Maud, 12:20, Douglasville, 12:23, Linden, 12:23, Ashdown, 12:28, Nash, 12:28, Texarkana at 12:33, Queen City, 12:36. And then we begin to Arkansas. So hopefully that means these storms will be out of here not too long from now, but until then, they are capable of producing straight line winds of 60 to 70 miles per hour. I will say they are looking a little less intense on the reflectivity structure over the last 15 minutes, but they're still capable of producing winds of 50, 60, even 70 miles per hour in spots, and that'll cause a lot of tree damage, power lines down and shorted out, and we could have trees down on roads, which is very dangerous at night when it's after dark. You're doing highway speed, not realizing there's a tree down on a road, and you run into it. So that's a big cause of injuries and fatalities after storms in the middle of the night. So these are the latest times with the potential for localized winds of 60 to 70 miles an hour. Don't think we're going to have hail out of these. If it is, it's tiny. Heavy rain, cloud-to-ground lightning. But the lightning count also has been coming down. The lightning count with the storms in Navarro County has been skyrocketing. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if we start having some flash flooding issues in Navarro County here soon. Those are some very heavy rains falling from Ennis to Rice to Corsicana. Yeah, I know Ennis isn't in Navarro County, it's in Ellis County. But the good news is, while a brief tornado can't be ruled out, we've calmed down a lot in the tornado department. We've calmed down a lot in the hail department, and we've calmed down somewhat in the damaging wind department. Let's switch back to the Fort Worth weather radar, and we'll take a look at the little thunderstorm cluster making a ruckus down in Navarro and Ellis counties. Storms may be done to nickel-size hail in northeastern Navarro County, extremely heavy rainfall, copious amounts of cloud-to-ground lightning, gusty winds up to 50-55 miles an hour. I'm going to switch to a product I don't usually use. Let's see. Well, that didn't really work, did it? Why is that not updating? That's interesting. Oh. So the estimated rainfall amounts over the last hour from the weather radar in Fort Worth. Totals might be a bit higher. About an inch and a half across southeast or southern Ellis, northwestern Navarro, much of Navarro, honestly. Which, if that's correct, could result in some minor flooding, but isn't the kind of rain that would cause major flooding in the short term. And we know that these storms in Navarro County are trying to ramp up somewhat. They're getting pretty tall now, so we might have to get a severe warning for quarter-size hail as these storms move northeast at about 35 to 40 miles an hour. They'll be moving into Gun Barrel City in about 35 minutes. Well, actually, based off that, let's just say 15 minutes. Potential for some small hail, gusty winds, heavy rain, enough cloud-to-ground lightning to make the doggo hide under the bed. And I haven't had a chance to look and see exactly how much damage is going to happen north of Forreston back into Ellis County. I haven't had a chance to... I know what happened on the interstate. I haven't heard of any structures, any of that, but based on the fact there's a command post and all of that, it probably isn't good. But it's May in Texas, unfortunately. This is the kind of stuff you have to deal with. But what's happened has happened. We're here to tell you what's happening and what might happen in future tense. I've confused myself. That's not uncommon. Let's keep talking. So the good news is, in terms of short-term trends, these storms from near Avery coming down east of Mount Pleasant up I-30 to Naples, they've kind of shown a decrease in terms of what we have going on aloft with reflectivity intensities. Hopefully that means the winds at the surface are now also being a bit less intense. That being said, we could still see winds of 50, 60, maybe even a 70 mile an hour wind gust in Avery, DeKalb, New Boston, Marietta, and Naples over the next 15 minutes as these storms race off to the northeast at 55 to 60 miles an hour towards Arkansas. In terms of the heaviest hail, maybe some nickel quarter-size hail in spots around Texarkana, Rice to Gun Barrel City. Those are trying to trend up in the hail department. Maybe some 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. We see a little strong storm northwest of Canton. And all this is moving northeast, and ooh. Now let me tell you something. When I looked 15 minutes ago at this storm west of Burke Burnett, it was non-intense in the hail department. That has changed. This thing's moving east now. This thing, the right edge of this split off, turned east. So now we've actually got a pretty good looking severe storm coming up on Burke Burnett and the northwest side of Wichita Falls, passing just north of Iowa Park. This thing's probably moving east at about 40 miles an hour, could produce quarter-size hail winds up to 60 miles per hour. I'm going to... Well, if we're doing that, let me see if I can activate live composite. I can't. Sad. Let me see what the radar is estimating on the hail size. It might be quarters. Yeah, about maybe nickel to quarter size hail, maybe some 60 mile an hour winds coming into Burke Burnett, I-44 up to Shepherd Air Force Base. And the next 10 minutes, this thing's flying east. After that, it'll pass north of Wichita Falls. Could still have some gusty winds in northern Wichita Falls. Eventually, the storm will be moving east of Interstate 44, crossing over Highway 79 around Dean, Petrolia, and Byers, Texas. And that's going to be in about, let's say, 35 to 40 minutes. Otherwise, we're watching strong storms in northern Navarro County, southeastern Ellis County, copious amounts of lightning staying east of the damage tracks from earlier in back west towards Foreston. We've got a strong storm northeast of Wills Point towards Emory, small hail, gusty winds, and we have storms capable of producing winds of 60 to 70 miles per hour in localized areas from near Pittsburgh to Mount Pleasant to Avery. Coming up on Naples, they're moving northeast at 60 miles per hour, so they're not going to stick around very long. We'll do another storm track. And I'm going to give these some leeway. Well, that's not what I wanted. Since these are moving so quickly, I'm going to give them some leeway and draw it out front. So they might arrive a few minutes later. Good enough. So if they're going at about 55 miles per hour, here's some estimated arrival times. 12:10 in Marietta, 12:22 in Douglasville, 12:17 in New Boston, 12:24 in Linden, 12:30 in Leary, 12:35 in Atlanta and Nash and Ashdown and Queen City. 12:40 in the morning for Texarkana on the Texas side, a minute or two later for the Texarkana on the Arkansas side. So hopefully these storms will be out of the state in the next 35 to 40 minutes. They're not looking as intense as they were 30 minutes ago when we had winds of 80 to 90 miles an hour back from Sulphur Springs to near Mount Vernon, but they're still quite capable of producing winds of 60 miles per hour, knocking down trees. And that'll be true as the storms move towards DeKalb, New Boston, Maud, Naples, Marietta, Linden, Atlanta, and Texarkana over the next 30 minutes. That's why we've got a severe thunderstorm warning. Now, let's go back to northwest Texas. This storm passing just north of Wichita Falls that suddenly decided it wants to become a hailer. Come on, radar. Don't be mean. Don't be mean. Don't be mean. And don't be mean. It's being mean. I'm talking to the radar. That's not a good omen. It means I need more coffee. That's probably also part of the reason y'all love me, for the entertainment value. Alright, it's going to be the weather radar. Let's take a look at what's going on near Burke Burnett. The state's largest hailstone was recorded last year until about 4 or 5 days ago, when I believe the new state record near 6.5 inches well west of San Antonio near Hondo. This severe thunderstorm capable of producing quarter-size hail, winds of 60 miles per hour, crossing Interstate 44 near and just south of Burke Burnett near Sheppard Air Force Base in the next 5 minutes. Sheppard Air Force Base in the next 10 minutes. Petrolia on Highway 79, 35 minutes. Byers, about 40 minutes. At this rate, it'd be in Petrolia at 12:43 and Byers at 12:47 in the morning. The hail rain portion of this will stay north of Wichita Falls mostly. The exception being the areas just north of Wichita Falls. You know where the Cracker Barrel, the Taco Bell, the Walmart, the KFC, just west of Sheppard Air Force Base there. It might get that. Quarter-size hail winds of 60 to 65 miles an hour. Could still have some gusty winds in Iowa Park and Wichita Falls proper. Otherwise, only other severe storms are with the complex moving across northeast Texas. Got a lot of thunderstorm wind damage reported in Mount Pleasant now. Multiple trees down. That's not a shock. So we've got these storms in northeast Texas. We've got sub-severe storms in Navarro and southeastern Ellis County. Uh, Nickel-size hail, heavy rain, gusty winds, not severe. Storm that has gone from just being a simple wind maker to a wind inhaler, passing just north of Wichita Falls, the potential for quarter-size hail. Oh, I say that. Weather Service thinks it's ping pongs and ping pong and 70. Oh, apparently I need to have the hiccups. That's great. There, I'm muted. No accidental belching or burping on a live stream this time. I did earlier, and I was laughed at by multiple people for a long time, and I doubt I'll get to hear the end of it anytime soon. Alright, let's pop back over to northeast Texas. We'll see how we're doing on the leading edge of our thunderstormy department. I'm going to use my other radar to read the city since it's far more detailed. Alright, leading edge is in DeKalb to Bassett to Naples, coming down to west of Hughes Springs. Possible winds 50, 60 miles per hour. That can knock a lot of trees down. Maybe some small hail, heavy rain, and cloud-to-ground lightning. These storms are moving at nearly 60 miles an hour now. They continue to accelerate, so they're going to keep flying northeast. Texarkana will be in the city by 12:35, most likely. We've got storms back west in eastern North Texas capable of producing small hail, heavy rain, and gusty winds. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll stay on the live stream, but I'm going to mute it real quick. I'll be back in just a few minutes. All right, I am back. It is 12:18 in the morning on the 4th of May, 2021. Another one of those days in May that live in historical weather, severe weather lore, as most days in early May do. It's about 85 degrees in this room. I'm gonna have to start a fund to get an air conditioner for this room. Ooh, it gets warm. We've got a couple severe storms we're watching. Let's go ahead and take a look at them. Mount Pleasant, we've got wind damage there. We've got wind damage all along I-30, frankly, with these storms. They are weakening on the reflectivity structure. So at this point, I think it's a good bet. The strongest winds are going to be in proximity of New Boston, moving towards Texarkana up into southeast Oklahoma. South of that, yeah, we got gusty winds, but they're probably not strong enough to be considered severe. What is now severe, though, is a severe thunderstorm back over eastern Navarro County, moving towards Gun Barrel City and Athens. It's going to be in an area of slightly higher instability. It's a cellular type storm versus a bow, although it still seems to have qualities you'd expect with more of a line segment versus a supercell. Looks like it's mainly a wind maker. Let's switch over to the which way the wind is blowing mode. Yeah, we could definitely see there's some wind being indicated by radar up to 60 miles an hour. That'll be crossing over Highway 274 near Toole in Trinidad, moving towards Athens on Highway 31. Let's go ahead and get a timeline on this. About 20 minutes to Athens, 20 minutes to Eustis, and Highway 175. And eventually, if this keeps moving more easterly, it could be a threat to the city of Tyler in about 1 hour. So, hey, heads up, Tyler. You might have a severe storm with some wind coming your way in about an hour. Small hail possible, too. It's not a big-time hailer. It's a wind and rain maker. All right, a severe thunderstorm warning continues for northeast Texas. Let's go back and say hello. Oh, by the way, we've got mean little supercell up here north of Wichita Falls. That thing's definitely not just a wind maker anymore. That thing's a hailer. Passing north of Wichita Falls, passing hopefully just north of the Air Force Base. Oh, let's see. Oh, it got the Air Force Base. Hail core passed really close to the Air Force Base, unfortunately. So, sorry. Up into Burke Burnett, we could have had some quarter to ping pong ball size hail, winds of 70 miles an hour. And this storm is moving east at 50 miles an hour. It'll be in Petrolia and Byers within the hour, probably closer to 1245, 1250. If it keeps moving east, it should pass over the Red River into southern Oklahoma, but we'll have to keep an eye on it because if it turns a little more right, it may just stay right on the Red River and pester me through the night to spite me. All right, radar, I'd really like it if you loaded now. In fact, I'd give you a cookie. A cookie? I'm not giving you a cookie. I'll have a cookie, though. So that's what we've got going on with that storm right now. Let's go back into northeast Texas to our wind maker that's caused all sorts of wind damage across northeast Texas this morning. It extends from near, let's turn those off, New Boston to west of Maud to Marietta. Highest wind threat's going to be along 67 around Maud up to New Boston to the Red River. That'll be in Texarkana within 15 minutes. Winds up to 70 miles per hour are possible. That can knock down trees, power lines, trees fall on roads, trees can fall on homes and businesses. Trees block roads. You can't see trees at night on the road if you're doing highway speeds. You hit the tree at highway speed, you die. That's not ideal. We don't want that happening to anyone this morning. So please be very, very careful if you're traveling out and about after these storms pass through. Potential for 60 to 70 mile per hour winds moving into New Boston right now. Hooks within 5 minutes. Leary and Nash within 10 minutes. Texarkana within 15 minutes. These are flying east at about 60 to 65 miles per hour. Oh, we've got another little wind maker trying to make itself known. Moving towards Gun Barrel City and the city of Athens on Highway 31. This is a wind maker and not really a hail maker. Winds up to 60 miles an hour being indicated on the weather radar as the storm moves east-northeast at, we're at 50 miles an hour. So remember how the storms earlier yesterday were moving at like 20? Yeah, that's gone. They're moving at 50 now. Welcome to increased upper level dynamics and a more linear storm mode. It makes life all fun and happy. Well, let me go ahead and make sure we're still tweeted out on YouTube. There are several hundred of you watching me this morning. I am so sorry. But hey, you know what? Thanks for joining us, even if you're just here for the weather entertainment. I know I watch other severe weather coverage from other states just for the entertainment or to learn a few things. You don't want to learn anything from me, trust me. But, oh, man, that thing east of Wichita Falls has become a nasty hailer. Petroleum buyers, you're about to probably get, I mean, honestly, you might have ping pong ball size hail here soon. We note a 71 mile per hour wind gust was measured at Shepherd Air Force Base. 71 mile per hour wind gust measured at Shepherd Air Force Base at 12:15. Potential for ping pong ball size hail, winds over 70 miles an hour within 5 minutes. And let's say this. Let's do it this way. Petrolia 12:39, buyers 12:44. Not the buyers up in near Mount Scott with the burger joint. The buyers in Texas. Although I think there's actually a really good burger joint around there too. So maybe it's just a buyer's thing. They all have to have good burger joints. All right, so there's that. Wichita Falls, this is staying just to your north and northeast. Be happy, because otherwise you'd be filing hail claims. Severe storm moving towards Athens and Highway 175 near Eustis. The potential for 60 mile per hour winds and some small hail in the next 20 minutes. Be real cool if my weather radar would load, but I may have just blown it up. Why, oh, why do I download betas? Oh, why am I doing that? Because I'm a fool and I download betas. Sometimes they work or not. Okay, lean edge of the damaging straight line winds in far northeast Texas coming into hooks on Interstate 30 and Highway 82. It's pouring rain and a blowing in New Boston. This will be in Texarkana within 10 minutes. We've got heavy rain, maybe some gusty winds in places like Naples, Marietta. Those have pretty much degenerated to more of a showery type situation versus a I'm going to blow your roof over situation. But I mean, there still may be strong winds. You don't know. But the highest threat for the damaging straight line wind seems to be in proximity of New Boston and the Red River in southeast Oklahoma, moving towards Texarkana. I hope I'm right and we don't have damaging winds farther south. It's possible the severe thunderstorm warning technically goes all the way down to Linden and Atlanta, but it looks like those southern storms are weakening. And hopefully I'm right. Well, let's watch some random tornado video on Twitter from earlier. Thing about doing the live coverage is you don't usually get to watch a lot of stuff in real time, so I'm just starting to see some of the tornado video from like Blum or when the tornado crossed I-35E near south of Waxahachie. I'm resetting the weather radar because it's being mean and hateful to me. Which isn't really a surprise, that's just technology in general. But it's 12:27. Hey, good morning, I'm David Reimer at the Texas Storm Chasers. Why is there a supercell with baseball-size hail in southern Oklahoma at 12:30 in the morning? That's east of Duncan, near Velma, moving towards Ratcliffe City, Elmore City. In southern Oklahoma, that's going to be making a beeline for Davis, Wynnewood. Hey, I filmed tornadoes in Wynnewood and the waterfall in the state park up in Oklahoma there. As for Texas, we've got a storm with ping pong ball size hail, winds up to 70 miles an hour, moving into Petrolia and Byers on Highway 79 in about 5 minutes or less. This storm is well northeast of Wichita Falls now. It's booking at 50 miles an hour. It'll move into southern Oklahoma within the next 15 minutes. If it turns right, it'll pester me and move along the Red River. If it keeps moving east, it'll stay just north of the Red River in Oklahoma, where it's not my problem. Could it be say, if this was in a year or two from now? Maybe, but that's a little secret. All right, let's pop back over to Fort Worth radar and see what's going on. We've got a storm over Gun Barrel City coming into Malakoff. Potential for maybe some nickel-size hail. Winds of 60 miles per hour. Actually seeing a pretty good little wind signature there now, so winds definitely up to 60. Potential now moving into western Henderson County near Trinidad and Malakoff over the next few minutes. Winds up to 60, 65 miles per hour. Maybe some quarter-size hail. Probably not that much hail, though. And this will move towards Eustis and Highway 175, passing over the northwest side of Athens. And there's the latest update. We'll go ahead and click on that magical arrow of direction. Passing over 175 in about 10 minutes. Brownsboro, 33 minutes. Chandler, 44 minutes. And if it were to continue, it will be paying the city of Tyler a visit in 50 minutes. So 126 for Tyler, 122 for Lindale, 113 for Chandler, 105 for Edom, 103 for Brownsboro, 1234 for Log Cabin, 1233 for Caney City. And I'm going to butcher this name. I'm going to get hate mail. I've already gotten hate mail. Don't need more hate mail. Murchison. And again, I grew up with speech impediment issue. I couldn't say R's until I was like in the 4th grade. So, sometimes I mispronounce cities. I'm sorry. If you want to hate me and send me hate mail for that, 1, you must have a lot of time on your hands. 2, it'd be more helpful to tell me how to pronounce it. And 3, if you want to send hate mail, that's fine. I can print it out and use it as kindling in my bonfire later this week. So, severe thunderstorm warning now approaching Petrolia and Byers in northwest Texas, northeast of Wichita Falls. After that, it'll be moving into southern Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plains and the hailstones try to break your windows. That being said, that was San Antonio today, yesterday, and last week. Same with parts of DFW, so one day I'll write a hail song. I really will too, and I'll sing, and then everyone will unfollow us. But the storm over New Boston should be moving into Texarkana the next 10 minutes. The storms in northeast Texas, frankly, otherwise are weakening. So once this storm in New Boston's out of the picture, it will be an Arkansas problem. And except we have new storms that have developed southeast of Dallas. So we've got a severe storm near Log Cabin, Payne Springs, Star Harbor. I believe this is actually all the lake south of Gun Barrel City. And it'll be crossing 175 in 10 minutes near Eustis to Athens. This could be in the city in 10 to 15 minutes or less. Some small hail. And winds up to 60 miles per hour. I'll be honest, I'm starting to become a little concerned. I want to look at a different radar product. I'll be honest, I'm curious at this little rotation signature developing north of Star Harbor near Caney City. The time of night and the relative storm mode would suggest we shouldn't really have to deal with much of a tornado threat, but at the same time, that really does look like a little bit of a velocity signature developing. So we're going to keep a close eye on this storm. I'm going to look from a different radar. It's going to be way farther away. I mean, we're dealing with a cellular type storm. There's no screaming velocity signature, but we're looking at 15,000 feet. We're going to do a bit of analysis. Let's go back to the Fort Worth radar. This is the lowest tilt. Let me see if I can get the radial tool to come up. We're looking at about 7,000 feet above the surface, so we're looking pretty high up. There's your rotation signature. At the lowest tilt, let's look up. This is closer to 10,000 feet. Yeah, there's a bit of a rotation signature, so it's not just radar data being bad. Here's at 13,000 feet, so yeah, we might have a bit of a rotation developing here. Well, that wasn't on my itinerary for 1 in the morning. This is with the severe storm coming up onto Highway 175 near Eustis and Athens. Bit of rotation developing now with this thunderstorm, a little surprisingly. It's warned for 60-mile-an-hour winds and nickel-size hail, but I'm going to have to keep an eye on it. Definitely, I mean, at the least, the rotation would help increase the threat for damaging straight-line winds. Uh, over 60 miles an hour in places like Star Harbor, Log Cabin, just east of the lake, moving towards Athens. I'm going to actually ask. Yeah, definitely going to watch it. If nothing else, potential for damaging winds is increasing for Log Cabin, Star Harbor, the west side of Athens. Radar, the hail signature aloft is starting to increase too. Huh. This thing's actually trying to become a supercell versus just a line segment. That's really interesting in terms of something I didn't expect at this time of morning. We're getting a new radar scan now. Let's see what the velocity does. Here, let's switch back. Interesting. Yeah, there's some rotation. So, yeah, got a little bit of rotation showing up just north of Log Cabin, now moving towards Eustis and Highway 175, northwest side of Athens. Uh, wouldn't say it's putting a tornado down, but it's certainly helping to enhance the potential of 60 to 70-mile-an-hour winds. And I know the Weather Service is keeping a close eye on it. So, the storm is trying to become more of a supercell. Notice how it's out by itself. It's not really part of a line. I mean, yeah, there's storms north of it, but this thing's more of a cellular type storm. I'm a little surprised. It's almost 1 in the morning, and here we go with this. So, okay, that would help increase the potential for maybe some quarter-size hail, too. So, I mean, at least this is definitely some wind surging out, maybe a bit of rotation, but nothing that would put a tornado down at this point. Certainly enough to put down some 60 to 70 mile an hour straight line winds as the storm makes its way towards the west side of Athens and Eustis, crossing Highway 175. And we also know, I'm going to switch to a different product that gives us a decent look at the hail potential using multiple weather radars and compiling it into one data graphic. Now, the data is a little delayed, but it shows about nickel to quarter size hail. That's what you'd expect. We'll switch back to single site data and we'll turn on that. Now, keep in mind, this is going to overdo the hail potential. Most of the time, the hail size is like half of what this is showing, especially in these type of situations late at night where we're dealing with wind makers. It's saying golf ball size hail around Log Cabin. Yeah, there might be golf ball size hail aloft, but that's certainly not what's making it down to the surface right now. What I do want to do is I want to play a loop. Now, this might blow my radar up. That might not have been a good idea. I just wanted to look at trends, just see how the trend is for that to increase. So the storm itself is intensifying. The storm itself seems to be trying to take on some transient supercellular characteristics versus just being a bow echo. So we're going to have to see if that continues. That would not be something we want to see at this time of morning, but those of you in Athens are about to get woken up by a rather unpleasant storm. Alright, I have to reset the radar because I loaded way too much data doing that loop. Every one of those animation loops, by the way, loads like 200 megabytes of RAM, and it just blows up after a while, especially since it's a 32-bit program. Looking at data, because that's what I do. I'm singing. Okay, I'm done singing. Alright, let's zoom back in. We'll take a look at our situation going on across the state. We'll turn on the warnings again. We'll turn on the radars. Let's check first with our westernmost stormies, one that produced some 70-mile-an-hour winds and hail just north of Wichita Falls and on Shepherd Air Force Base. Hail falling in petroleum buyers right now, winds up to 70 miles per hour possible. That'll be moving across the river into Ryan, Oklahoma. We do note a very unhappy hailer up near Ratliff City and Tatum's up in southern Oklahoma. That's going to be making its way towards Davis. Interstate 35 up there in the Davis Mountains where you climb up. You have some of the view spots off 35 around mile marker 48 to 50 that are all closed right now because the Oklahoma Department of Transportation is messing with it. Oh, as we move into northeast Texas, it looks like the storms up here that are moving in Arkansas continue to weaken. Yeah, this is just showers now. I mean, yeah, there might be some strong winds 50 miles an hour, but those have weakened. So it's just heavy rain ongoing from Clarksville to Talco to Mount Pleasant to New Boston. That's just all rain. Stratiform rain on the back edge of this little thunderstorm complex. I just heard lightning and thunder. You can't hear lightning, but you can hear thunder. Our most intense storm at the moment is now this one, northwest of Athens. Capable of producing, looks like the hail core is built up. I'd say quarter-size hail is possible. Aloft, before it melts, it's probably up to the size of golf balls right now. But again, that's not what's making it down to the surface. That's just some, probably quarter-size hail. Now, why am I hearing thunder where I am? That's disconcerting because I'm not paying that much attention to where I am. Yeah, I'm singing, I know, I'm sorry. It's almost 1 in the morning, you can forgive me. And if you can't, well, the unsubscribe button's somewhere. But we love you, so please don't unsubscribe. Alright, there's that. Oh, here's what we're looking at. We've got a storm that's taking on some supercellular characteristics northwest of Athens. That's going to be making its way east at about 40 miles an hour, probably passing just north of Athens. Gusty winds on the south side of the thunderstorm could still bring some 60-mile-an-hour winds into Athens. That'll be moving east on Highway 31, and honestly, this storm's making a beeline for the city of Tyler. It'll be there in about 50 minutes. Right now, it's severe. It's capable of producing quarter-size hail and winds of 60 to 65 miles per hour. We're going to look at the velocity signature, and yeah, there's some mid-level rotation, but a pretty good surge of outflow winds coming out on the rear flank downdraft. Wouldn't be shocked if we had 60 to 70 mile-an-hour winds move into the northern side of Athens in the next 10 minutes. And this is definitely a different look than what we had with the storms in northeast Texas. Those were a bow echo, and those were linear. This is cellular, and it's intensifying. All right. Quarter-size hail winds up to 65 miles per hour. In Eustis Log Cabin, just north of Malakoff at the moment. Given this, it'll be passing over the city of Athens, especially the north side, north loop, over the next 10 minutes. Murchison in about 15 minutes, so 12:59. 1:11 a.m. Brownsboro, 1:21 in Chandler, 1:27 in Noonday, and about 1:37 for the center of Tyler. A few minutes earlier for west side of Tyler, a few minutes later the east side of Tyler. And again, this thing's capable of producing quarter-size hail, winds of 65 miles per hour. It is showing some weak transient rotation aloft, but that's only helping to enhance the damaging straight-line wind potential, especially on the south side of the storm near Athens. And now it's time for caffeine water. I don't know where I put my caffeine. It's not ideal. Caffeine. There it is. Caffeine. And anywhere you're seeing those pinks on the velocity data, that is winds being indicated over 70 miles per hour. 70, I'm sorry, 60, 60, 60, not 70. Now, we do note this storm has continued to intensify over the last 10 minutes. Looking at the hail core aloft, you'll remember it was about 1.7 inches. Now it's up to 2 inches. Again, that's aloft. It has to melt before it reaches the surface. So at this point, quarter-size hail. Although honestly, it might be trying to make hail a little bit larger than that now. It might throw out a ping pong or two. In addition to wind gusts up to 65 miles per hour. On the velocity data, although this scan was a little wonky with the range folding there from the Fort Worth radar, you can see we're seeing winds being detected around 60 miles an hour, 65 miles an hour. We're looking 7,000 feet above the surface, so we're not looking at the surface. But all in all signs have pointed to continued intensification with this supercellular type storm over the last 10 to 15 minutes. And it's going to come say hello to the city of Tyler in about 50 minutes. So if it's still making hail and damaging winds, those of you in Tyler are going to begin it in around let's just say 1:30. Might be a few minutes later, but hey, you know what? It works. Let's make sure we're still streaming live coverage. I want to make sure it's shared on our Twitter. There are almost 500 of you watching this at 12:45 in the morning on YouTube. Thank you, by the way. Thanks for joining us. I'm glad you are with us at this time of night. Let me be clear, we have not had any tornado warnings for a long time now. We don't have any tornado warnings now. Our strongest storms, mainly the one just northwest of Athens, are capable of producing quarter-size hail, winds of 65 miles an hour. Storms just north of the Red River, east of Wichita Falls, are producing baseball-size hail and winds of 70 miles an hour. But that's Oklahoma's problem. That isn't our problem. Just sent out a link on the Twitter, letting folks know we're still alive and live streaming. Ever since Periscope went away, it's made it a little harder to get our stuff out on Twitter. So, let's go ahead and look back in Northeast Texas. Man, our chat room's alive this morning. I can't look at the chat in real time, unfortunately, because I'm usually too busy, but thank you for all those chatting and liking and subscribing over on our YouTube channel. We appreciate it. You can keep an eye on the storms with our interactive weather radar on our website, texasstormchasers.com/radar, or just watch us in the mobile app. Texarkana, literally, the storm's dissolved. It's literally a line of showers now. Yeah, they could have gusty winds, but that's not a thunderstorm look. It's raining, I've got 30-mile-an-hour wind look. Whatever. Moderate to heavy rain in northeast Texas, stratiform on the backside of the squall line up there. Heavier storms from near Yantis to Canton, and then we've got our super-duper supercell just northwest of Athens, and a little storm trying to gain a little bit of strength near Kaufman and Oak Grove. Small hail, gusty winds. Make sure the storms up in northwest Texas have exited the state. Those are moving into southern Oklahoma. Ardmore is about to get nasty hail. Davis, about to get nasty hail. Man, I'm glad those are north of the Red River. That would not be good to be dealing with at 1 a.m. in North Texas. So, let's go ahead and do that. And we'll keep an eye on this storm north of Athens. Passing north of Athens now. We'll take a look at the velocity. Noisy, well, I say noisier. That's not as noisy. I mean, Uh, I don't like that look, I'll be honest. You see that little appendage there? Now, we're looking really far away from the radar in Fort Worth, which makes this kind of a pain in the behind to deal with. But that appendage and that velocity signature kind of concern me, and I feel comfortable saying this thing is trying to develop some more organized rotation. Is it tornado warned right now? No. If it tries intensifying that rotation, could it be tornado warned soon? Yes. But at this point, a strong wind, 60 to 65 miles per hour, and quarter size hail. Again, let's go look from Shreveport. We're looking from different radars to get different looks at the storm. This radar is even farther away than the one in Fort Worth right now, but it'll get us a different angle and a different approach. Look at the velocity data. Oh, yeah, that's real usable. Oh, that's about as useful as a ingrown toenail. Good grief. All right, well, here's what we're going to do instead. Yeah, the surface, or the radar being closest to the surface, which is like 7,000 feet, shows rotation. Okay, let's go up a couple degrees. I'm going to turn on the radar radial tool. Remember when I said we were looking at 7,000? I'm wrong. We're looking at 8,000 feet, okay? That's 8,000 feet. There's rotation. 11,000 feet, rotation. Rotation, 15,000 feet. So we've got vertical continuity. We're looking at the mid-levels of the storm. I can't tell you if there's what's going on in the very low levels. Let's switch to the radar in Shreveport again and see if that'll help. Unfortunately, we're kind of in that radar hole again where there's no good view. We'll hit that radial tool again. We're looking at 13,000 feet. So, yeah, we've got a supercell just north of Athens. It's rotating. It's got decent mid-level rotation. It's probably putting down winds of 60 to 65 miles an hour. It could be dropping quarter-size hail on Highway 19 north of Athens. It's got good mid-level rotation. Does that correlate to good organized low-level rotation? I don't know. We don't have a radar close enough to look in the low levels. But at this point, the Weather Service offices in Fort Worth for Athens, and then the Weather Service in Shreveport, which covers Tyler, are keeping a close eye on it. Obviously, we don't have tornado warnings, so obviously they don't think it's strong enough to be tornadic. And the latest scan kind of does look more like a straight line wind signature, which is what we've been dealing with this morning. So again, even if we don't have a tornado, and we don't have a tornado or organized low-level rotation, this organized mid-level rotation is helping to enhance the damaging straight line wind threat with this thunderstorm. By the way, that's going to be in the city of Tyler at 147. City of, well, that's a 147, 151. That doesn't make sense. 45 minutes from now is not 147. Okay, that's being dumb. Here's what we're going to do. Back there. Yep. This storm's going to be in the city of Tyler in about 35 to 40 minutes. So Tyler about 130, 135. You could have a severe storm coming in from the west. This activity from Kaufman to Grand Saline up to Emory, that's not severe. That's just some heavy rain, maybe some gusty winds, small hail, lightning. Not severe. The only severe storm in the state of Texas I'm worried about right now is this one north of Athens, capable of producing quarter-size hail, winds of 65 miles per hour, and is showing some mid-level rotation. Oh, I've got too many monitors. All right. No, I don't have too many monitors. There's never enough monitors. All right, so that's what we've got going on there. We've got hailers in southern Oklahoma. We'll take a look at from the radar up in Oklahoma City because I'm curious. And, ooh, those are not nice hailers. This one coming up on Davis Mountains. Potential for nasty hail. This one west of Ardmore. Nasty hail. This one that hit Wichita Falls with strong winds, nasty hail. And we'll have to keep an eye on these, because if they start turning more southeasterly, they could cross back over the Red River in northeast Texas. So we're going to keep an eye on them. Alright, let's pop back down. What is that in southeast Ellis County? I see you. Are you trying to develop another storm? Quit. A little storm going up over Alma. Nothing but rain right now, and it better stay that way. I'm not in the mood. We've got the supercell northeast of Athens, capable of quarter-size hail, winds of 65 miles an hour. And we note the Weather Service has added a tornado possible tag. That's where there is some mid-level rotation and low confidence there may be a tornado, but not high enough confidence to upgrade to a tornado warning. So it's just an I, or a sign, I guess an I, if you're looking out for signs. Yeah, whatever. Of mid-level rotation and something we need to watch for. So this is moving east, northeast-ish, essentially towards Edam, Lindale, and Tyler. It'll be in Lindale and Tyler around 1:35 a.m. as I shake my beverage. It's caffeine time. So that's pretty much why we're here this morning. We're keeping an eye on it. These storms in northeast Texas have exited the state and or dissipated into showers after producing plenty of wind damage, knocking down trees. DFW Metroplex, you pretty much are clear at this point. Why is the new storm near Rice already have a hail marker up to an inch? Well, that's just annoying. Well, good news. Apparently that storm's trying to pop up into a severe storm real quick, which it might. It might produce quarter-size hail, and if it does, it's going to move towards Kemp. If it turns more easterly, it'll impact Gun Barrel City and Maybank. So there might be a boundary there from storms earlier this evening, and that's why we keep seeing storms pop up now, hours later. That's just a little bit of mesoscale meteorology guesswork. This storm moving northeast into the city of Tyler, they've got it in there by 1:25, so 30 minutes from now, I guess if it's speeding up, yeah, it might be in Tyler by 1:25 to 1:30. After that, Big Sandy, 1:44, Winona, 1:38, and Liberty City at 1:51, eventually moving towards Longview not long after that. So at this point, a severe storm capable of producing quarter-size hail, winds 65 miles an hour, and we're watching it for any signs it's trying to strengthen in the rotation department. It's early May. I mean, this is what we have to deal with. It's May 4th now. I can pretty much recite major tornado outbreaks on every day for the first 2 weeks of May that have happened in history past. That's not what's happening now, but I'm just saying severe weather in early May, yeah, that's not a surprise. As we translate towards the summer months, having severe storms continue well past sunset, also not a surprise. I mean, it pretty much feels like summer now in East Texas. It's 73 and Tyler with a dew point of 61. Now, the dew point's kind of low for summer, I'll give you that, but in Jacksonville and Henderson, the dew point's 71. Now, that's more like summer. Hearing reports of some wind damage around Texarkana, so apparently that line of showers is still making winds capable of knocking down tree limbs and causing power outages. That goes to show you, this is an outflow boundary with strong winds. It's not even a thunderstorm, it's just a strong wind boundary at this point. That extends from Texarkana on the Arkansas side to Atlanta. So we could still see winds 45, 50 miles an hour there as that continues shoving east into Arkansas and Louisiana. Back in northwest Texas, nothing's going on in northwest Texas besides some rain in the eastern Texas panhandle. Just north of the Red River, we've got hailers in southern Oklahoma. Big, nasty, mean hailers at that. Wind-driven tennis ball size hail sound fun? Anyone? That's what could be happening right now, approaching the Davis Mountains, about 50 miles north of the Red River on 35. We're going to keep an eye on this storm that is north of Terrell, Oklahoma, north of Ringgold, Texas, on Highway 81. If it turns right at all, it may try to come back into the state of Texas, past south of the Red River, so we're going to have to keep an eye on it. For now, it's staying just north of the Red River. It'll be crossing I-35 near Marietta, about 15 miles into Oklahoma on 35 in about 45 minutes. If it turns right at all, that'll bring it back south of the Red River towards Grayson, Cook counties. At this point, though, it's staying north. Like a good little stormy that I don't want to deal with. All right, let's pop back down and see what's going on with our supercell moving towards the city of Tyler. Now, good news is, even though we're looking at about 9,000 feet above the surface now, the rotation signature is much less defined than it was about 15 minutes ago near Athens. We're still seeing quite a bit of a wind signature, so the storm's capable of producing winds up to 65 miles per hour, in addition to quarter-size hail. I'm having to check to see which radar is closest to the I'm seeing. We're going to have to start playing radar, or pick your closest radar. So let's look from the radar in Shreveport. It's a little farther away, but you know what? We'll give it a look. We'll see velocity. We'll switch to storm relative, and yeah, there's broad mid-level rotation, which you'd expect when looking at, we're looking at 9,000 feet above the surface right now, 9,500. So yeah, that's mid-levels of the storm. It's rotating. But at the same time, we need to watch it closely, because if the rotation strengthens much more, this thing may try to go tornadic. Really a treat at 1 a.m. That would be not ideal, having to wake people up at 1 in the morning. Storm in southeastern Ellis County continues to intensify. It might have quarter-size hail, and that might need a severe warning here pretty soon as it moves towards Kemp and Highway 175. If it turns a little more to the right, it could be a threat to Maybank. Otherwise, this storm north of Murchison is moving more northeast now, so it may be a threat to northern sections of the city of Tyler and Lindale in, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And we're keeping a real close eye on rotation. Again, we're looking mid-levels of the storm right now. We're looking at about 9,600 feet, so we're not looking at the surface or in the low levels. We're looking the mid-levels, but at the same time, that's the best we have, so you got to work with it. We're going to keep an eye on the rotation signatures, and if need be, we might end up with tornado warnings. We and I do not issue tornado warnings. That's the National Weather Service. We've got an office, zoom out, in Fort Worth that covers all north central Texas, from the Red River all the way down to Belton, all the way east, Canton and Athens. In northeast Texas, that's served by the National Weather Service office in Shreveport, Louisiana. So we'll be doing a office transfer here in a minute, where the storm will move out from the Fort Worth County warning area into the Shreveport County warning area. We're going to have to see what they all elect to do. And again, yeah, looking down in the low levels or mid levels of the storm. Let me turn off that storm track. Go away. I mean, this is at 9,000 feet, and that, unfortunately, is a pretty good velocity signature. So, I mean, we're borderline here, but at the least, damaging straight line winds are a pretty good threat with this thunderstorm. If the rotation tightens up anymore, I'd expect there to be a tornado warning. So we're going to keep a close eye on this thunderstorm. Those of you in Lindale and Tyler should too. I mean, at the least, it's got hail, quarter-size hail. It might be a little larger than the size of quarters now, and winds of 60 to 65 miles an hour. And this is the only game in the state right now. There is not a severe weather warning. Well, let's rephrase that. Yes, we have a severe warning up in Texarkana. That's not our problem anymore. It's in Arkansas. There's no other severe storms in the state right now. We're watching severe storms in southern Oklahoma in case they turn a little more southeasterly and try to visit our Red River counties of northeast Texas. They're not right now. That is good. This storm is not being so good. It's trying to be a supercell. It is a supercell. It's trying to be a spinny supercell. We don't want spinny supercells. Whatsoever. Now, Let me be clear. We've got some rotation, but I think the radar is having some de-aliasing issues. It's not that strong. That was a scary looking velocity signature. It's not that strong. I'm looking at a different product that allows me to better decode that data. Yeah, there's rotation there. It's not super couplet of doom like that was just showing. So we're not going to show that again right now. Circulation will be passing just north of the city of Tyler, hopefully in about 15 to 20 minutes. Hail threat in Lindale up to Interstate 20 on Highway 69 here in the next 15 minutes. We're getting another radar scan from the radar now. I'm looking at the wrong radar. Let's try this radar. We're kind of having to play hopscotch between both radars. They're equal distance, but let's try this. Let's switch back to the velocity data. And yeah, that gives you a better idea of what we're dealing with right now. And yeah, there's rotation with this thunderstorm, and frankly, it's probably about the best it's looked so far. So the latest scan will say a lot about what they're going to do. At the least, we've got good rear flank downdraft winds up to 65 miles an hour with this storm. It'll be crossing Highway 69 on the north side of Tyler in about 15 minutes. Along with the potential for quarter-size hail. And we can't rule a tornado out, but it's not a classic-looking tornado signature right now, which is why we don't have a tornado warning. But trust me, the Weather Service offices are watching this thing like a hawk. Really? Did we pretend we took acid? Stop it. No drugs. Thank you. I'm not Steve Jobs. I don't do that. That was a good book, by the way. Completely random subject, but the book about Steve Jobs. Okay, that was a random tidbit for the morning. Let's turn that back off. We'll look at the... No. Yes. You can see the latest scan, the velocity signature isn't as pronounced. Yeah, it's rotating, it's spinning. The radar, but we're also looking at 8,500 feet above the surface in the mid-levels of the storm. That's the best we've got, so we'll deal with it. Let's play analysis. Winds moving away from the radar in Shreveport about 45 miles an hour. Winds moving towards the radar at about 25. For 8,500 feet above the surface, it's not that intense. I mean, winds increase above the surface. Yeah, the storm's rotating. There's no doubt about that. It's probably got some weak low-level rotation, too. But nothing tornadic at this point. And we're going to make sure, hopefully, it stays that way. But those of you in Redland, you're going to be getting in on this storm here in a few minutes. Quarter-size hail, potential for 65-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Those of you in Edom, you're being visited right now by the storm. You're probably getting those strong winds right now. After that, north side of Tyler and Lindale, you'll be getting in on it. And then Winona and Owentown within 30 minutes. Well, that is what we've got going on right now. It's a one storm show. That storm that was trying to pick up an intensity with some hail in northeast Ellis County is leveled off. Some small hail possible with that. Otherwise, we're just watching and keeping an eye on things. Expecting a warning for the Tyler area here soon, a severe thunderstorm warning. All right, we're getting a new velocity scan in. The data on my other product tends to update just a little bit faster. You can see it just updated the reflectivity there, so it's about 15 seconds faster. Storm continuing to move northeast. Hail core is not as defined. Maybe some nickel to quarter-size hail. Switch back over to the which way the wind is blowing mode. See if that's the latest. I think it is. You can see I'm showing it without storm motion considered, which I'll switch to in a minute. It'll look different. But at this point, yeah, you can see we've probably got 65-mile-an-hour winds, maybe a bit higher around Edom, on the rear flank of the circulation of this thunderstorm. Switching with storm relative motion considered, you can see, yeah, we've got some rotation. Winds moving towards the radar about 30, winds moving away at about 25 to 30. So, again, for a mid-level circulation about 8,500 feet above the surface, that's not overly intense. I mean, it's spinning, but it's not spinning like a top, and we'll keep a close eye on it. Reflectivity-wise, storm looks kind of less organized than it did 10 minutes ago. You can see it's not really much of a supercell shape anymore. It's decreasing in size and intensity. So if that trend continues, that's good news. And the fact it's moving more northeast than east is also a good sign. If it was intensifying or intense, it'd be moving more easterly. If it moves more northeast, it's going to keep... It kind of decreases my concern a bit. That being said, I mean, we're watching it. There's nothing else to watch right now. It's 1:09 in the morning on the 9th, or the 4th of May, not the 9th of May, the 4th of May, 2021. I'm David Reimer. We're keeping an eye on a severe storm capable of producing some hail, some damaging winds, and exhibiting some rotation about 10 minutes west of the city of Tyler, kind of moving towards the north side of Tyler, south side of Lindale, and then eventually Winoma, most likely. It's under a severe thunderstorm warning. We have no tornado warnings at this time. Frankly, the reflectivity structure isn't as intense looking as it was, but the velocity signature still has me keeping an eye on it. You can see the reds and the greens touching there. Not very strong, mind you, but the winds are the red colors are moving away from the Shreveport radar. Winds in the green are moving towards the Shreveport radar. We'll do some telestrating, even though it's going to make my drawing skills pathetically horrible. And see, that's your broad area of rotation right there. We'll see what the Weather Service in Shreveport does, but it's definitely looking weaker than it did. Now, the new scan there, you can kind of see the hook appendage. Let's pop over to storm relative velocity and see what that's going to do. That's going to take another 10 to 15 seconds to come in. But the storm itself is weaker than it was 10 minutes ago. The hail cores come down. The rotation has come down. And we should begin that new velocity scan in a second. You can see we've got a severe thunderstorm warning now. That includes the city of Tyler. It includes Lindale, Mineola, Owentown, Winona, or Mineola and Winona, Big Sandy, Pritchett, Betty, Gilmer, and Liberty City, just west of Longview. Potential for maybe some quarter-size hail winds up to 60 miles an hour. And again, this looks less organized than it did. The latest scan on the velocity data, that's much more of a outflow straight line wind signature than a rotational tornadic signature. So that is good news. It's still probably going to wake you up, though. Maybe some small hail, quarter-size hail around Lindale in 5 minutes. Winds 50 to 60 miles an hour in the north side of Tyler and in Lindale, including Interstate 20, as it moves between Lindale and Winona over the next 15 minutes. Oh, excuse me. More caffeine. So that is the good news. We're going to keep an eye on these storms in southern Oklahoma. It looks like they're going to stay north of the Red River mostly. The one near Ardmore is weakening. The one north of Nakona is weakening. The hailer attacking the Davis Mountains is not weakening. That one's producing big hail about 50 miles north of the Red River in Oklahoma. We've got rain in the Texas Panhandle. We've got showers across portions of North Texas. Otherwise, honestly, the only thing we have going on, a little shower northeast of Corsicana, a little storm with small hail southwest of Kemp. Weakening, but still severe storm southwest of Lindale, west of Tyler. Otherwise, we are calming down, which is good. I want to take a quick look at model data. We're going to do real quick I don't usually do this on the fly on a live stream. You're just going to have to deal with me because I've got to press a few different buttons to make this work. Let me cut down some of the cities. Very useful when you're zoomed in, but unfortunately, when you're zoomed out, it can get a little messy. All right, let's press that. I'm going to press that. We're going to look at some model data. I haven't looked at this lately, so we'll see what it shows. This is going to be the high resolution rapid refresh model. That's for 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. So you see, it actually has some new storms developing along the cool front in East Texas around 8 a.m. And some of those would have hail. You could see it actually extend southwest into the Brazos Valley by 9 a.m. So we might have some strong to severe storms later this morning after like 8 a.m. in East Texas and Southeast Texas. In fact, we can actually try out something. Model estimated hail size. Yeah, some hail swaths there. Let's see what... A little bit. I'm just looking at different parameters right now. That's just low-level instability in the lowest 3 kilometers. Let's see what wind gusts are. I'm curious. Well, not overly extreme, minus the one attack in Shreveport. So, yeah, we might have some strong to severe storms pop up later this morning in East Texas, the Brazos Valley, and Southeast Texas. That would then continue moving east through the early afternoon. So, I might not get to sleep tonight. How fun! Sarcastic wise. So it looks like this model's got stuff decreasing in intensity across eastern North Texas and East Texas this morning, and then firing up new storms around 8 a.m. or so in East Texas and the Brazos Valley along the leading edge of a cold front. And some of those might have some hail and gusty winds. So let me switch back on the live data. I've got to press a few buttons again. Again, I don't usually do this live because I have to turn data off for a second and change our top banner and press all sorts of fun buttons. But, all right, we'll press that, we'll press that. We'll turn on the warnings again, hit back our weather radar. Let's see what's going on with our stormy out northwest of Tyler. So, I mean, it's still a marginally severe storm capable of producing maybe nickel-size hail. The hail core's come down from what it was 15 minutes ago. It's still showing some mid-level rotation and straight line winds up to 60 miles an hour. Storm relative rotation, there's some weak rotation in the mid-levels of the storm north of Redland, moving towards Interstate 20 and Highway 69. We're looking in the mid-levels of the storm. We're looking 8,000 feet above the surface. So understand, and that's more of a straight line wind signature than rotational signature. Understand, I can't tell you what's going on in the very low levels, but the good news is, in terms of intensity trends, it's been coming down the last 15 minutes. And this is the only severe thunderstorm warning in the state of Texas right now. So let's keep an eye on it for the next few minutes. And if it keeps decreasing in intensity, I might be able to quit live streaming at 1:30, switch to radar, and find some sort of throat numbing device because my throat hurts after doing 5 to 6 hours of live coverage tonight. I'm glad I was in a position to be able to do that, though. And thankful to so many who were able to get useful information out of it. We'll see what my bandwidth bill is. Hopefully nothing that's going to break the bank. But, okay, rotation continues to weaken. Storm continues to generally weaken. Again, maybe some small hail, gusty winds in Lindale, crossing Highway 69 near Tyler, north of Tyler, I should say. This would be moving more towards Big Sandy and Winona over the next 5 minutes. We'll switch over to the hail estimator aloft. You can see hail sizes have come down. They were red and purple back north of Athens. They're down now. This is hail aloft, and it's not even technically severe criteria. Severe criteria is 1 inch. So at the surface, I'd be more expecting of dime to nickel size hail at this point, maybe a rogue quarter size hailstone. Looking at the velocity data, we have a very weak mid-level circulation, nothing that would scream tornado. Otherwise, we've got a storm that is northeast of Winnsboro, maybe some small hail. Looking at the wind, nothing that screams super damaging winds. This is the only severe warning in the state of Texas. The storms that were on the Red River have evaporated. I mean, they are gone. Talk about cap smashing. Those storms ran into a cap and they got obliterated. Looks like the same thing's starting to happen with the storm over the Davis Mountains, so that might mark the backside of a departing upper level storm system with some subsidence or sinking air kicking in. But we do note the high resolution rapid refresh has hailers forming again after 8 a.m. in East Texas in the Brazos Valley, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that. I might not get to sleep tonight. Oh, what's going on in Kaufman County? Well, let's say that. That's a cute little storm, isn't it? Let's see what it's doing in the hail department. Literally not a thing, which I don't necessarily believe. Oh, come on. Thank you. But, I mean, the storm northwest, north of Tyler's either steady state or coming down in intensity. The marked trend over the last 20 minutes has been for storms, not only in East Texas, but across the river up in southern Oklahoma to decrease in intensity. So hopefully we've reached the magical point where we're starting to calm down. Some strong winds about to cross Interstate 20 at Highway 69. Radar in the mid-levels is indicating winds up to 60 miles per hour. And those are continuing to decrease. That being said, this thing just shot out a lot of lightning. Interesting indeed, because lightning trends just went up. We'll keep an eye on this. We'll say it's steady state. Wow, it just shot a lot of lightning out. I may have cursed it by saying maybe we've reached a tipping point. So, oops. Small hail likely falling on Highway 69 and Lindale right now. This storm is moving, let me turn on a storm tracker. Northeast about 50 miles an hour. If it survives, it'll be in Winoma in 15 minutes. Gladewater in about 30 minutes. North of Longview in about 40 to 45 minutes. Crossing into the easternmost column of counties in the state of Texas in about 50 minutes. Could have some nickel-size hail falling on Highway 69 near just south of Lindale down to Interstate 20. Gusty winds up to 60 miles an hour crossing Highway 69 around Interstate 20 to the north side of Tyler. We've got dime-sized hail reported in Hideaway in Smith County. And right now, honestly, we're just keeping an eye on things. Here, we'll switch to a different product. We'll do a loop over the last 30 or so minutes. Let me turn off that. You can see we've generally been on a downward intensity trend. But the storm also just shot out a lot of cloud-to-ground lightning, so I'm going to keep an eye on it for a few more minutes. But if trends continue, you'll be able to quit looking at my ugly bald head at 1:30 this morning. Sorry for not looking directly at the camera. I've got a plethora of computer monitors around me I use to keep situational awareness. Or at least try to, let's be honest. When it gets super busy, it's easy to lose situational awareness, especially when you're doing multiple live streams. But at the moment, the only severe storm is passing over Highway 69 near Lindale, northwest of Tyler, moving more northeast than east, so it's going to be a threat to Gilmer in Gladewater versus Longview or Tyler or Marshall. Storms are mostly behaving themselves this morning, which is good. You did not just turn into a 1-inch hail marker. Don't you do that, Stormy. I want to be able to get off this at 1 a.m. and go eat some oatmeal. Get off this thing at 1 a.m. It's 1:23. I'm late. I'm at 1:30. But yeah, we might see some more strong to severe storms after 7 or 8 this morning in the Brazos Valley in East Texas as another little wave of upper level lift hits a cool front and an unstable air mass ahead of that cool front. So we'll have to wait and see. I haven't had a lot of time to look at that, but I know the high resolution rapid refresh model has been pretty animate in showing that. So it did pretty well this evening with storms. We're going to have to keep an eye on it. In fact, I can look at that right now while we wait for the latest radar scans. So, Tyler, you're in the clear from this. You might get a little bit of rain. You might get a little bit of gusty winds. Hail, if any, is staying up closer to Lindale. And you can see it just moved east of Highway 69 in Lindale. So let's switch back over to the higher resolution radar that has a tendency to blow up my computer if I leave it on and loop it. This will be moving into Big, Sandy, and Hawkins in the next 5 minutes. Storm continues to accelerate, moving northeast at about 55 miles an hour. It'll make it to Gilmer, Gladewater, eventually Ore City. In about an hour and 10 minutes, it'll cross Highway 59 around Jefferson if it's around by then. Storm's currently capable of producing some nickel-size hail, maybe some 50 to 60 mile-an-hour wind gusts. It's been steady state now for about 5 minutes, perhaps a little bit stronger. But this is a borderline severe storm. It's not something I think we're going to have big hail out of right now, or even super destructive winds. All the hail reports with this storm over the last few minutes have been dime to nickel size. Although it just shot a lightning strike out 20 miles east of it. It just shot a lightning strike out to Winona, east of Winona, about, I don't know, my mouse shows up about right here. Oh, I'm going to put the lightning feedback on this radar. I'm going to regret it when we end up with a bunch of storms again at some point, and I have to keep turning it off, but we'll add it back for now and see if we can show you that lightning strike. All right, we're going to press that. Press that. There you go. There's your lightning. See that random lightning strike way out ahead of this storm? That's interesting. The storm will be crossing over Highway 155 and Highway, yeah, it's Highway 80, near Hawkins and north of Winona near Big Sandy in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Could have some nickel-size hail, maybe some winds of 55 to 60 miles an hour. The storm is technically severe warned, but it's borderline at this point. I'd say it's probably been under severe limits for times over the last 15 minutes. It's trying, though. I mean, I'll give it credit. It's not just evaporating. I'm hopeful it'll continue weakening. We can get off this live stream in a few minutes, but that's the initial plan for now. We'll give it another radar scan to see what it does. We've got some heavy rain with lots of lightning moving into Mount Pleasant, Winfield, and Pittsburgh. Those are just your typical loud thunderstorms. They're not severe, no hail, maybe some 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Same thing with the storm just south of Quitman. Head back into North Texas. It's not raining at all in the DFW Metroplex. We've got a storm making a few lightning strikes north of Kemp. It looks like it's weakening. Did I not say this had evaporated? Now that's interesting. I'm actually curious. Let's loop this. Well, it's holding its own, so I'm sorry. Strong storm moving towards Marietta, passing north of Windstar World Casino on Interstate 35 in the next 30 minutes. Got a hailer that passed over the Davis Mountains. We'll look in central Oklahoma because I can, and well, nothing else going on. Heavy rains moving up Interstate 44 into Blanchard and Newcastle. That's well south of Oklahoma City. Moving to the west sides of Norman, northeast side of Blanchard, and then south side of Moore. Some gusty winds, some heavy rain, maybe some small hail, typical for Oklahoma. Nothing to write home about. And you know what? I don't like this thunderstorm. It's actually intensifying again a little bit. The hail core aloft has increased slightly. The thunderstorm tops have increased slightly. And so we might have nickel to maybe quarter-size hail in Winona and Big Sandy in the next 10 minutes. Winds maybe 55 to 60. Not worried about a tornado issue. Not worried about super hail or anything like that right now. But the storm's steady state and looks like it could still be borderline severe. So we'll keep an eye on it. But as we approach 1:30, it's now 1:29. What we're going to do now is we're going to terminate our continuous live severe weather coverage and switch to posting updates on our digital media feeds. We post the most frequent updates on our Twitter feed, which is also embedded in our mobile app. You can just click on the Rapid Update feed. And of course, you can keep tracking the storms using our interactive weather radar on our website at texasstormchasers.com/radar. Or better yet, download our free mobile app. You'll get notified when we post detailed forecast blogs or when we do severe weather coverage and live storm chasing video. And we'll keep an eye on things. I'm not going out yet, but we're going to at least stop doing live video for now so you can stop looking at my bald head constantly. So I'm David Reimer with the Texas Storm Chasers. Thank you for joining us. I believe we're up to nearly 6 hours of severe weather coverage off and on over the last several hours. And we're still going to be here keeping an eye on the storms overnight and early this morning. Remember, we might see new storms after 7 a.m. in East Texas and the Brazos Valley, and some of those might have some hail and gusty winds. So we'll keep an eye on the sky. Expect y'all to do the same. Y'all have a good night and stay weather aware.